Being unemployed, I have a lot of free time to consume media, and amongst that media was Abroad in Japan versus Oriental Pearl. You probably know the gist of the drama, but if you don't, it's essentially Oriental Pearl saying Japan is cooked when speaking about graffiti, and Abroad in Japan pointing out that all of Japan is in fact not cooked over graffiti. Now this controversy is a very peculiar case, as I feel like Chris made one allegation and then Pearl made around 6 allegations in response. So Chris said Japan is not cooked because of graffiti, and instead of trying to convince him as to why Japan is cooked because of graffiti, she goes into Chris has a secret friend group, Chris is putting words in her mouth with decrying the end of Japan, which statements such as what is happening to Japan and is Japan cooked over graffiti could be put into the decrying the end of Japan box. Chris has hated her for 5 years despite never meeting or speaking with her once. Chris has attacked other YouTubers in the past, and Chris has invested interest in ensuring tourists in Japan stays high, and any content that speaks poorly of Japan would hurt tourism. All of this because Chris said all 120 million people in Japan are not cooked because of graffiti. Now, I would say I'm still leaning in favor of Chris is in the right here, because one thing she says in her video is really concerning to me. In her video, she says this.
And when you cover topics like this, it's okay for people to disagree, but it's not okay to lash out. Chris, that would have been a great video talking about how you think that all the sensational content about the Japanese economy not being good, the graffiti or foreign immigrant problem not being good, you can counteract that and make a video stating your own opinion. It didn't have to be done in a Facebook post like that. That was just malicious, hostile, and ill-willed.
So I fail to see what is exactly hostile, malicious, and ill-willed about a Facebook post, and a video is somehow not any of those things. I kind of get the impression that she doesn't want Chris Broad talking about her opinion publicly at all. So let's say you're Oriental Pearl and you see Abroad in Japan make a statement saying like, Japan is the worst country ever. You would not be allowed to disagree with him because that would lead to creator on creator harassment even if you disagree with his opinion heavily. I don't get this. By Pearl's logic, the only thing she can do is make a counter video saying like Japan is the greatest country ever, probably also not mentioning Abroad in Japan's opinion a single time. Because if she goes into the video saying like a certain YouTuber said Japan is the worst country ever, like everyone's gonna know who it is. It's still creator on creator harassment. You do these things without worrying about the harassment from the online trolls. If you share your opinion publicly on YouTube, you need to be prepared to have everyone, regardless of size, being able to critique your opinion. If you believe Japan is cooked because of graffiti, you have to be able to defend why you think Japan is cooked because of graffiti. You do not immediately go into you should take this down, this leads to creator on creator harassment. By her logic, Abroad in Japan shouldn't announce anything Logan Paul does in Japan because it would just lead to creator on creator harassment. This is not how sharing your opinion on the internet works. If you share your opinion on the internet, you need to prepare to have your opinion scrutinized on the internet, regardless of anyone's size. Just because I have 4,000 subscribers, I'm still allowed to call you out for your opinion. And I will say she says she does not want creator on creator harassment, and then she proceeds to make a video in 6 hours on her biggest platform she has instead of just keeping it on Facebook or taking it to the DMs if she doesn't want this to escalate into full-blown creator on creator harassment. She made this as public as possible. If this never left Facebook, I never would have known about it. I didn't even know Abroad in Japan still posts on his Facebook. And because Abroad in Japan is a YouTuber now, he has to make a response video to you. Now, going into her second video, I do believe the graffiti problem is a big issue in Japan. She did a very good job presenting her case there. I don't agree with her clickbaiting what is happening to Japan and saying, is all of Japan cooked over graffiti? I feel like that's very clickbaity and not very genuine. I feel like I would click off the content. And I will say, if it weren't for Abroad in Japan pointing out the graffiti added onto the thumbnail, I would still believe that is what that area would look like in real life. She also points out that Chris edits his thumbnails way more than she does, and I disagree with her because Chris is not trying to pass off his thumbnail as reality. They're clearly stitched in or unrealistic photos. You are trying to go to an area with a GoPro and pretend that is a photo you just took with a GoPro. Let's say hypothetically I go into Japan and I make a video titled Japan's Most Dangerous Prefecture, and then I take a picture of the asphalt, go into Photoshop, and then I do a tape outline of someone's body. I'm trying to portray that as reality because I'm not doing any other changes to that. I'm trying to portray that as someone actually died in that thumbnail, which is not reality at all. I am editing my thumbnail in such a way that makes it look like that will actually be in the video. And that is, I believe, dangerous because I'm trying to fabricate details to get more views. Again, if Chris didn't point it out, I would still believe that is what that area would look like. Another thing she points out in this video is that abroad in Japan led another YouTuber bald and bankrupt into an exploring and trespassing an abandoned building. And as far as I could tell, that's just a blatant stretching of the truth. Abroad in Japan did not lead Bald and Bankrupt into an exploring an abandoned building. As far as I can tell, Abroad in Japan gave Bald and Bankrupt general advice when it comes to coming to Japan, not say, hey, go to this specific area and go explore this specific abandoned area. He never said that, and according to Bald and Bankrupt in the video, he said, I saw this cool abandoned area over there and I'm going to go check it out.
Attacks from him will be based on how much he likes you or hates you, and his friends and other YouTubers will dogpile you. If he likes you, you have immunity to do whatever you want. Take, for example, Bald and Bankrupt. When Chris led Bald and Bankrupt a few years ago into finding abandoned buildings so he could trespass in them and make videos, that was fine, because they're friends. Do you know one major thing Johnny Somali was charged with in Japan? Trespassing! Big deal. I still like Bald and Bankrupt.
So we've crossed over Japan to its western seaboard, and we're passing through this town of abandoned hotels. Saw one back there, another one, and there's a giant one up ahead.
So when you said Chris led another YouTuber, I think of that as Chris actively told this YouTuber to go and explore this abandoned building. I genuinely thought that Chris led this YouTuber into exploring this abandoned location. But when I go watch the video, I find out that Bald and Bankrupt found the area on his own. And just because Abroad in Japan is credited in the description does not mean Abroad in Japan told this YouTuber to go explore that abandoned area. And basically the impression I get is she is saying Chris did not call out Bald and Bankrupt because he is in his group of friends. He should have called him out for trespassing in that area. And then in the very next frame she says she doesn't... she still likes Bald and Bankrupt and that it's only a misdemeanor. So both you and Chris clearly do not care about trespassing in an abandoned area. It's one thing if it was an active area and he was trespassing, Chris would probably call that out. But if it's an abandoned area, clearly no one would care. So she's saying she still likes Bald and Bankrupt despite trespassing, and she's saying because Chris did not call him out for trespassing that this is proof that he has a secret Japan friend group. The only thing I take from this is that Abroad in Japan and Oriental Pearl do not care about people trespassing in abandoned areas. Now going back to the first video, throughout the whole video, I get the impression that Pearl thinks Chris specifically hates her channel because she is a rival and has for years. So she came to this conclusion that Chris has hated her for years despite never talking to her once or meeting her once. Just because Chris has never spoken to you does not mean that he despised you or resents your channel in any way. Now there's a lot of YouTubers who play the same game I play, and even though I don't speak to all of them does not mean I resent them. So just because I don't acknowledge their content because I don't want to be influenced does not mean I actively hate their guts. You can coexist in the same niche without ever speaking to each other. Now there are two YouTubers I know that do not want to see these two fight, and that is Sora the Troll and Only in Japan. Only in Japan had the beef with Abroad in Japan years ago, and Only in Japan said that beef has long been since buried. Sora the Troll and Only in Japan want them both just to talk it out because they know how damaging and strict the defamation laws in Japan can work, and they're both Japanese residents, so they are subject to those laws. I believe Abroad in Japan did right to point out this content in a Facebook post. I believe that she should not have done a video on it because that just leads to Abroad in Japan making an even bigger video that put more eyes on this than a Facebook post ever could have. She didn't really try to settle this on Facebook. She kind of went directly into a YouTube video. I don't see why she went directly into a YouTube video, but this is just my opinion on the overall controversy. But yeah, I think that is my 2 cents.